Before the voting started. He had all over the holidays to figure this out. You know, we've heard from a lot of Democrats, they've said over the last few days that Nancy Pelosi would have never brought something to the floor that she knew she couldn't win. And he had weeks to figure out whether he could win this or not, whether he wanted this kind of public display of dysfunction. And then, of course, these last few days, every time they break and every time they negotiate, the big question is, what else is he offering? And I think it's important, as you were just talking about with Jay, to remember that this is a really delicate balancing act, because the more he negotiates away, the more concessions he gives to these holdouts, the more he risks losing votes on the other end of his conference. I mean, there are Republicans that are getting very worried about what deals he might be making and what kind of speaker he might be if he does eventually win. I mean, if he makes some of these concessions we've been hearing about, where, for example, a rules change where only one member would be able to say, basically, essentially to a vote of no confidence for the speaker to suggest there's a vote again for over who should be speaker all over again, that motion to vacate rule we've been talking about, some different decisions about letting these 20 holdouts pick who is on certain committees, including extremely powerful committees like the Rules Committee. I mean, every time he entertains one of these possible concessions, he runs the risk of losing other votes, because there are plenty of Republicans that are not interested in conceding to these 20 holdouts and who are very worried that with those concessions, Kevin McCarthy would have a harder time leading and having a functioning conference. I mean, it would be really tricky if we could see this level of disunity on big spending bills. If he makes rules changes where people could, from the floor, offer an amendment on a budget bill or whatever these rules changes are that he's considering, it could make it extremely difficult for McCarthy to lead and for Republicans to stick together. And I think you're seeing Republicans that are with him right now start to get very nervous about that.
President.
Barbara Comstock, these are a lot of the same people who voted against certifying the election. You pointed that out, refusing to accept the will of the American people, and yet here we are again.
Tiffany.
That's right, and they refused to accept the will of their own conference.
McCarthy.
I think one of the things that, you had asked me yesterday, the day before, I think, what would I do if I were there? I think maybe if you had some people who decided, you know what, I'm willing to take a risk and throw away my seat, or, in the name of democracy here, I'm going to stand up in conference and find maybe 4 or 5 others and say, we're going to go out there and vote for Hakeem Jeffries if you guys don't get in line. And since I'm at the beginning of the alphabet, somebody B or C, I'll do it, And then if the other guys would follow, and then see if these guys tune it up as the Hakeem Jeffries numbers go up, maybe they'd get in line, kind of do a nuclear option like that. I think it's going to take, if McCarthy's not going to step aside and do something, there's got to be 5 or 6 people who are willing to retire or put their seat on the line, or in the same kind of scenario, find a alternative candidate that you could coalesce around, something like what they did in the state legislature in both Pennsylvania and Ohio, where they said, you know what, the heck with these far-right nuts. We've had it with them. Republicans went and worked with Democrats to get a more centrist candidate. And that may be what we need here, because I think that's what the American people are asking for, not the kind of speech we just saw where they're trying to appease these 20 and say, hey, we'll be crazy like you guys. I mean, we can't be shutting down the government. We can't be, saying we won't do anything about the debt limit and then throwing the economy into chaos. The kind of things that these people are asking for, these are the members who never vote for appropriations bills, who always say no to everything, who don't pass legislation. They're just performance artists. Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, they don't want to pass legislation. They just want to be on TV. If Fox News would give Gaetz a gig, in fact, he thought he had one at one point, he would be gone in a second if he could get a TV show.
Well, that plays into Matt Gaetz standing up earlier today and saying he votes for Donald Trump for Speaker.
Yeah, and he got Donald Trump all of 1 vote. So Donald Trump came in dead last and lost another election. Thank you, Matt Gaetz, for showing us that Donald Trump is the ultimate loser. Donald Trump can thank his good friend Matt Gaetz for that additional humiliation.
And now I'm being told the vote count is the same as last time. So now the question is, are we going to go into another round of voting, or will they vote to adjourn? This is, it's such a crapshoot. We really, even those who sort of speculated that it wouldn't go this long today, now it looks like it is, and possibly even longer. Mark Updegrove, you're the historian here. We talked about the last time we saw this happen was 100 years ago, and I think it went into, correct me if I'm wrong, to the 9th ballot. And so that is where we're going to be going now, if indeed this happens. Once again, we'll know hopefully here within a few minutes.
Well, I can't imagine, though, Kira, that the outcome will change. So I'm not sure what's in it for the Republicans now to have another ballot. It's the outcome will almost certainly be the same. This will make history insofar as it will. There will be a 10th ballot in all likelihood if the 9th ballot is the same as the previous 8, and we'd go on to 10. So they're making history in a sense, but I don't see the outcome changing until those 20 recalcitrant Republicans fall in line. And again, I think the point has been raised several times. What happens then? What kind of outsized power do you give this minute minority if McCarthy ends up striking a deal with them, as he may well? What kind of power will he cede, and what will that do to his speakership, to his ability to get things done when he's catering to these 20 Republicans who really don't want to get anything done? Again, I think they just want to get in the way of government. They want to make a big statement about government by not playing the game, by not compromising. So there are big questions ahead for Kevin McCarthy, Kira.
Yes, there are. And the question is, are any minds going to be changed? Will there be a shift in strategy? Will the votes shift in any way? What will Democrats do? Michael LaRosa, you know, we talked about this earlier, but it is worth repeating that despite a similar razor-thin majority, Nancy Pelosi never found herself in this type of situation.
No, she faced opposition as well prior to both of her speakerships after Democrats won majorities in the House. But each time they were handled and managed in the appropriate way. It's a large, diverse, ideologically diverse caucus, but also geographically diverse caucus. There used to be a lot of conjecture about the squad and all the havoc that they would wreak on the Democratic majority. But in the end, Pelosi spoke one language, and that was math. I remember one exchange she had on the floor with a member who said, that they were going to hold things up. And Pelosi just simply said, I have the votes. How much do you have? She speaks in math and numbers. And that was her biggest strength when it came to passing legislation and leadership races as well.
So, Jay O'Brien, when we keep talking about these members that are not voting for Kevin McCarthy, what is it that they are holding out for? And do you think they're going to get what they're holding out for? I mean, it's clear that they want more power and less power for Kevin McCarthy. And he is conceding to a number of things that is allowing that to happen in many ways. But what else is it that they are just sticking close to where they are not going to budge? Or are they just doing this, as we've been talking about, for the show, to get back at Kevin McCarthy, to embarrass him, to make him look like a fool?
Yeah, Kira, some breaking news on that. First off, as we get the results finalized of that 8th ballot now, our colleague Layli Ibsa just spoke with Patrick McHenry, who's a close McCarthy ally. He is of the opinion that we're at least here until tomorrow, that these deliberations will go on for another day and that there will be more ballots again tomorrow. But I can tell you there are two factions of those anti-McCarthy lawmakers, or at least a couple different factions within them. There are the lawmakers lawmakers who do want some kind of concessions from Kevin McCarthy, whether that's lowering the threshold to oust a sitting Speaker of the House, whether that's concessions on government spending, whether those are concessions on people sitting on the powerful Rules Committee of the House of Representatives, whether or not that's a number of different things. And then within them, there is the so-called Never McCarthy group of those House Republicans who say they will not vote for Kevin McCarthy under any circumstances. And this group, this opposition to Kevin McCarthy, those who have different opinions here, they're intermixing, they're talking amongst each other, they're talking about any potential deals that McCarthy might be bringing forward. I was at a meeting of that group earlier today, or at least some members who were opposing Kevin McCarthy earlier today. We saw Representative Lauren Boebert emerge from that meeting on her way to go to the floor for that first ballot around noon. We asked her repeatedly, will you vote will you vote against Kevin McCarthy on every single ballot? She said repeatedly that McCarthy doesn't have the votes, but wouldn't answer as to whether or not she's going to oppose him on every single ballot, but that's certainly the indication we've gotten from her. Also, we spoke with Representative Bob Good, who's been opposing Kevin McCarthy tooth and nail, and we asked him if there's anything Kevin McCarthy can do to earn his vote. I don't know if we had that interaction with Representative Good. Here it is right here. Think there's a deal Kevin McCarthy could put together that would earn him votes?
I like your tie.
So is that a no? It sounds like it's a no.
I'm just, I'm going to keep my comments quiet. Ask the American people to give us time.
So that's a different interaction. That's not Representative Good. Representative Good stands in the middle of the sidewalk there, and he turns back around to me and one other reporter, and he says, stop asking me if I'm a no on Kevin McCarthy. Indicating that he will always be a no on Kevin McCarthy. He is saying point blank there that he will always vote against Kevin McCarthy on every single ballot, signaling that he is one of those never McCarthy votes. We know that he is one, we know that Matt Gaetz is one, and we're getting indications that Lauren Boebert is one. So the question that again faces Kevin McCarthy and his allies is how many of those members are anti-Kevin McCarthy but want some concessions, and then how many members are in support of Kevin McCarthy, and then how many won't, and how many will oppose him on every single ballot.
Well, is there one thing that we do know? He likes your tie, Jay.
Yes, that is a member of Congress trying to get out of answering a direct question. But what we're also seeing there, oh, look at this on the floor. Hold on one second. So what you're watching on the floor right now is Matt Gaetz, who, again, as I've said, is one of those never McCarthy lawmakers. He's made that indication perfectly clear, speaking with Jim Jordan, who Jim Jordan has made it clear that he is in support of Kevin McCarthy. He is considered a leader amongst that further right faction of the Republican Party, amongst the House Freedom Caucus. And he's been voting for Kevin McCarthy on every single ballot. Jim Jordan was the one who got a lot of those protest nominations against Kevin McCarthy early on. People who didn't want to vote for Kevin McCarthy, including Matt Gaetz, voted for Jim Jordan. At one point, Jim Jordan stood up on the second ballot to nominate Kevin McCarthy, and Matt Gaetz then stood up to nominate Jim Jordan. And I can tell you from a source that I spoke with that Matt Gaetz did that because he knew that Jim Jordan was going to nominate Kevin McCarthy. So he decided to try to stop that dead in its tracks and nominate Jim Jordan to show to that group of anti-McCarthy Republicans we're still pushing ahead. And that's exactly what happened, because if McCarthy lost that second ballot, we might be going into the ninth ballot. That was on Tuesday. It feels like 2 weeks ago. But what you're watching play out on the House floor right now is Congress in action. It's democracy in action, in the sense that lawmakers are talking with one another. They're trying to whip votes. They're trying to get a sense of what Kevin McCarthy's strength is like. And I can tell you, unless something changes, unless something gives, unless the framework of a deal gets put out there. And by the way, that's Bob Good talking right there. Bob Good, one of the lawmakers who said he will not vote for Kevin McCarthy under any circumstances. He's the gentleman in the tan suit to the right of your screen. Again, what kind of a deal could there be? How many votes does it flip? And how many votes does it not flip? That's what Kevin McCarthy's team is confronting tonight. And again, one of his closest allies, Patrick McHenry, telling our colleague, Layli Ibsa, that he at least sees this going into tomorrow, Kira.
And even some sources saying this could go into the weekend, Jay. This is, I mean, what are your thoughts? Has anyone said that to you? Have any of the members alluded that this could actually carry on into the weekend?
Well, one of the things I've heard from sources that are close to these negotiations is that, and our colleague Will Staken has as well, is that if there is any deal, if Kevin McCarthy becoming the Speaker hinges upon some kind of a deal with the further right of the House Republican Conference, with these holdout members, that deal would have to be reviewed. You need 72 hours to review that deal, and then it would have to be formally voted on as part of the Republican rules package. And so that would have to happen in a meeting of the House Republican Conference. This is a process that could take days, depending upon how complex this deal is, Kira. So first you got to reach a deal, and then you got to get it in the pipeline of getting it approved and getting voted on and getting it run by the entire House GOP conference. Some of it was populated by moderates who, as we've been talking about, might not be so open to Kevin McCarthy giving away the store, as we heard some members describe it, to the further right of the House Republican Conference. So this is a long road, and it's a long process, and we're not even to the framework of a deal yet. We've heard that there are conversations about a deal between Kevin McCarthy and those lawmakers opposing him, but other than some rumblings, we haven't seen anything firm about what's in it. We haven't seen the framework of it released or anything in text about it yet. We know that there are conversations around lowering the threshold of what it would take to remove a Speaker of the House, giving the members of the House Freedom Caucus more power on powerful House committees and things of that nature. But how that happens, what exactly it looks like, is still very much unclear. So we got a lot of road left to travel, it appears, in this battle over who's going to be the next Speaker of the House.
Yeah, we might have to rewrite Robert Frost's poem. Jay, ask and you shall receive. You know, we were just talking about Representative Mike Gallagher, the Republican to Wisconsin, who is also a Marine Corps vet, and put together this sort of last-minute press conference with some other members talking about the concern that they have for national security and veterans welfare. Gallagher actually said that he and Representative Don Bacon were supposed to meet with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs to talk about matters in the Indo-Pacific. Our Rachel Scott actually had a chance to catch up with him. Jay, let's take a listen and see what he had to say to her.
How does this all shake out? Is the conference any closer to a solution?
My understanding is there were productive negotiations last night. It hasn't yet changed the vote totals, but I think that's a positive sign. I wasn't involved in them. I don't know what was specifically discussed, but my hope is that this is a conversation about policy and process and not just about personality, right? If people are interested in through rules changes, improving the functioning of the House, I think that can be a good faith discussion on both sides and we can get to a resolution. But if it's just a pure, I don't like this person, I don't like this person, then that's not a good dynamic to be in. So I don't know where the numbers stand right now, but at least I've heard, and the vibe on the floor now is that, you know, there were productive talks last night.
What is your message to some conservatives in the party who have made this very personal, who just say flat out they don't trust Kevin McCarthy?
Well, I'd say, listen, you're not in a divided government, in a narrow majority. You know, no one's going to get 100% of what they want, right? We all have, you know, I want this person to be chair of this committee. I want to do this or that. Like, we all have to figure out how to make this majority work. The American people have given us an opportunity to inject some common sense into the federal government, to do basic oversight of the executive branch. And whether or not you like or dislike someone, we still have to do that job. And more to the point, McCarthy has done more than anyone else to win us that majority. McCarthy has laid out a vision, policy-wise, for where we need to go in the commitment to America. And McCarthy has already agreed to a substantial number of rules and process changes that some of his detractors have demanded. So for those three reasons alone, I think he is the strongest candidate to be Speaker of the House.
Is he at the end here, and is there any concern about giving up too much, too many concessions, especially when you're trying to make sure that everybody rallies behind him?
I don't know what concessions are being talked about right now. So I know that people have been talking about that on the floor, but it just depends on what exactly they are. I think one of the concerns is sort of what precedent are you setting, right? If you're giving people a certain number of seats on a committee, well, then you risk opening a Pandora's box of, okay, well, then the other factions that want, you know, they want 3 seats on this committee, they want 3 seats on that committee, and that's just like total chaos, you know, all the way down. So that's one concern. But again, this is a difficult thing we're trying to do here. This institution has been a shell of its former self. It has operated by, the speaker telling everybody what to do for at least the last 4 years. What we're trying to do as Republicans is the opposite. We want to have a member-driven process. We have a big tent party with a lot of different views. So this was never going to be easy. It wouldn't have been easy even with a bigger majority. And so it's going to take some time to revive the People's House after 4 years of it solely being Pelosi's house, or just a grant-writing organization for the executive branch to fill in the blanks later.
Last question. Is it getting tiring at this point? Is it getting frustrating, especially when this would be the time that you'd be celebrating that majority?
Well, I'm not tired. I like one aspect I like that we're actually all on the House floor together for like a long period of time having conversation. That rarely happens because people are running off to go to a fundraiser and this or that. So like that's actually productive, and you get to know your colleagues that way. I will say I do want to get to work, though. I'm eager to get down to work, and particularly my committee work. And I wasn't able to do a classified briefing yesterday because right now we technically don't have clearances. I'm supposed to chair the Select Committee on China. We need to pass a rule creating the Select Committee on China. So I'm chomping at the bit to start doing work that can't be done because we have to elect a speaker before we do anything else. So that's one area where I don't want us to waste another week doing this because we don't have time to waste.
Jay O'Brien, there you go. Mike Gallagher saying to our Rachel Scott and putting it in layman's terms, giving a real-life example of how he wanted to actually do military business, and he couldn't get clearance because of what's happening here on the floor and the stalemate that we're in.
Yeah, and it's because he's not an official full-fledged member of Congress right now, and he's served in Congress. This is not his first time, but every member, regardless of if you're old or new or have been here before, you are not technically a member of Congress until you get sworn in, and that only happens until after the House of Representatives elects a speaker. The House floor, and we've been saying this for a long time, but if you're just kind of tuning into this extremely in-the-weeds legislative process, the one thing to take away is Republicans have not found who they want to be their Speaker of the House yet. And also, there's nothing the House of Representatives can do. The body that the framers wanted to be most associated with the people, by the way, there's nothing that chamber can do until it elects a Speaker of the House. It is frozen. We've heard from lawmakers who say they cannot do constituent casework. We've obviously heard from members like Mike Gallagher who say because they're not full-fledged members of Congress, because they have not been sworn in, they cannot get security clearance. He's getting bounced from an important meeting, obviously, as you just heard him reference. And so what we're seeing now is the pause button on everything else that happens in the House of Representatives until they elect a speaker. One more point of order to touch on here, Kira, is while the House is frozen until it elects a speaker, while there's chaos, while there is a degree of extreme legislative uncertainty, the tiniest of silver linings that we are seeing is very rarely do Americans get the chance to hear leaders of the Republican Party and leaders of the Democratic Party stand on on the floor of the House of Representatives that's packed, all of the members there, which so rarely occurs, and articulate the visions of both of their parties for the next Congress. You will see if we go to a ninth ballot, whatever Republican they have nominate Kevin McCarthy will lay out what they say is the business of the Republican Party that's being put on hold because Kevin McCarthy has not been elected Speaker. They're laying out, in a sense, what the Republicans want to do on day one now that they are in control of the majority of the House of Representatives. And then you'll hear it's been Catherine Clark, the Democratic whip, get up and nominate Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker. The Democrats pick for Speaker. He doesn't have the votes to become Speaker. And lay out what the Democrats want to do in the minority, but still in the next 2 years of this 118th Congress. That is a rare, unique opportunity, but there's a lot else going on. Can I ask you, Congresswoman Sparks, do you plan to vote for Kevin McCarthy at all? I got one moment there. So that was Victoria Sparks, who's been voting present repeatedly. She walked behind my camera here because the lawmakers walk behind the crews here in the Canada Rotunda where I'm standing. I got a 1-minute sign from her, meaning she'll come back to us. But we do want to know if she plans to eventually stop voting present and vote for Kevin McCarthy.
That's the corrupt Debbie Wasserman Schultz
a
we just
pickup
saw.
for Kevin McCarthy. But if she keeps voting present, that deprives Kevin McCarthy of that vote, Kira.
I'll tell you what, Jason, she's right there because we would love to hear from her. As you pointed out on the first day, or was it the second day?
There's the
she
corrupt
voted
one,
present.
Debbie
I'm losing
Wasserman
sight of my days
Schultz.
now. Second day.
I
love
can't-
it.
I don't
my
have my
entire
glasses
crew giving
on.
me the number 2. It's hard to remember.
I don't know who the other
First day,
ones
the second
are.
day, the third day. Yeah, if you want to try and get her, Jay, I'll take it to Rick Klein right now. You heard what Jay said, Rick. He actually pointed out a silver lining here.
Look, I mean, if you listen to what the members are saying, there's lots of things they'd like to be doing with their majority. They just can't do anything with that majority until they settle this first question. And it is the ultimate conundrum as we go through this weird combination of Groundhog Day and Veep and House of Cards and however you want to label it, that there are lots of things that Congress could be doing and that these House Republicans promised to do, but they're paralyzed from doing it by themselves. And I have been struck by speech after speech that are pretty similar from the people nominating McCarthy and the people nominating the anti-McCarthy candidate. In this case, it's Byron Donalds. They're talking about the same sort of things. They're talking about border security. They're talking about addressing the debt. They're talking about opening up the House of Representatives to more members' input. They're talking about oversight of the Biden administration. That's all great stuff as far as Republicans are going. That's the stuff that they expected by now what's day 3 of their Republican majority. They'd be well into.
There's the corrupt one, Ted Lieu.
They envisioned having news releases about committee hearings.
Who are these? I don't know who they are.
Legislation being scheduled. Lots of things that could be happening. Even if
It's the third day. You'd think I know who these people are by now. But let's take a look at, just as a summary, what's been happening here. McCarthy has failed over and over. And the change today, the vote is exactly the same that I've seen. Actually, I got to double check the last vote count. I think it's been the same, 201 for McCarthy, 20 others, which were Trump last I saw, and then one person present.
It looks like we are getting close to a gavel, so I'll take us back there, Rick. But as we know, this sometimes takes a moment or two.
These votes are pre-scheduled, so they can't stop them.
Veep or House of Cards. You forgot Scandal, by the way, which would be a really good one to throw in here, Rick. And I already said this on day 2. I want to be on the record. I see the Hulu series happening right now. It's probably going to be called Stalemate because there has been so much political theater. And I mean, just look at the cast of characters. George Santos, for example, did you notice today on the floor, he actually didn't leave. He stayed. He was talking to other members. This is somebody who was coming onto the floor doing his vote for McCarthy and disappearing because cameras were chasing him because of the investigations surrounding him and all the information we found out that was lacking thereof of his resume, making up his background, etc. If you do look at all the interesting players, you've got Matt Gaetz standing up and voting for Donald Trump for Speaker of the House. I mean, the characters are definitely there. So is all the drama. It looks like we're going to get started. Rick, be right back.
The tellers agree in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 433, of which the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212. The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 201. The Honorable Byron Donalds of the state of Florida has received 17. The Honorable Kevin Hern of the state of Oklahoma has received 2. The Honorable Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 1. With 1 recorded as present.
The Honorable Donald
No
J.
member
Trump.
elect having received a majority of the votes cast, a speaker has not been elected. The reading clerk will again. From what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House.
The gentleman is recognized.
Kevin McCarthy has been our leader for the past 4 years and has overwhelming support within this conference. My intent today is to address the American people who have been watching these proceedings. My intent today is to address the American people who have been watching these proceedings and are concerned about what they've seen in this chamber over the past 2 days. I am a member of the House Freedom Caucus, and I am proud to say so. I believe the 20 members that have nominated an alternate candidate have expressed their concerns with leadership, and many of those concerns have been addressed and accepted by Leader McCarthy and this conference. I believe this battle we are raging must end. Kevin McCarthy fully understands that being Speaker of the House will not be easy. Kevin is aware that any legislation he would like to pass out of this House will require support and endorsement from the Freedom Caucus. This is where I believe we can hold the Speaker accountable. Kevin has made changes to the House rules at the request of all members. One of those rules changes was the motion to vacate the chair, which Nancy Pelosi removed 4 years ago to avoid the scrutiny and the accountability. The motion to vacate the chair that has not been offered for a floor vote in over 100 years calls for the removal of the Speaker of the House. Kevin has reinstated the motion to vacate the chair, which I believe was the right thing to do. This motion allows us, the Republican conference, to hold the Speaker accountable. The American people gave us, my friends, us, the Republicans, the majority, and their vote of confidence to change the direction of our country. The American people are begging for leadership because the Biden administration certainly has not placed the American people first. Kevin McCarthy understands. He understands he must protect that Speaker's gavel and abide the will of the American people. The decisions we make in the 118th Congress are critical to the future of our country. The decisions we make, the legislation we pass as a Republican majority must have the support of the American people. We have a crisis on every corner in America, and the American people are expecting Republicans to bring this much-needed change. We must come together today and implement that change. To those of you outside of Washington that are watching, Kevin McCarthy and this Republican majority understand your pain. We understand your pain. We feel it. We understand we must secure our southern border. We must unleash our energy sector and become energy independent. We must curb inflation by reducing spending. And we must support our law enforcement officers, folks. We got to get crime under control. We must place America and its people first. And all this And all this, my friends, on the Republican side, all this, we can do this, all while holding the Biden administration accountable and the Washington bureaucrats who have infringed and abused the rights of the American people and their families long enough. Under Speaker McCarthy, they will be held accountable. They will be held accountable. So today, let's do what's in the best interests of the American people. Let's get to work. Let's elect Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. And at the direction of the Republican Conference, I advance the name of Kevin McCarthy as the next Speaker of the House for the 118th Congress.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise today to nominate Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker of the House.
The gentleman is recognized.
Vote. Democrats stand united and ready to get to work on behalf of the American people under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries. Vote after vote, nomination after nomination, Democrats are united. Just like we were united when we passed the American Rescue Plan to get our economy back on track. United when we passed the infrastructure law to rebuild America. United when we capped insulin at $35, passed historic gun safety legislation, and passed the PACT Act to help our nation's veterans. United when Democrats passed the CHIPS and Science Act to bring manufacturing back to America. United when Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act to reduce our deficit and protect our environment. Democrats are unified to tackle the climate crisis while Republicans are mired in their own leadership crisis. Madam Clerk, House Democrats are ready, willing, and able to get to work for the American people. We will do so under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries, who has a plan for the American people. Therefore, as Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, I am directed by the vote of our caucus to present for election to the office of the House of Representatives.
I'm going to let them speak, then I'll start doing some segments.
From the state of New York,
this is the corrupt one, Ted Lieu. This is the one, I don't know who's going to speak on behalf of Byron Donalds or whoever they're going to pick next. But this is always the most important speech of these rounds here. Let's see who stands up.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Montana rise?
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I would like to nominate the name of Byron Donalds to Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The gentleman is recognized.
Let me begin by stating that it is an absolute privilege to be here standing and serving with each and every one of you. I know we have differences of opinions, and I know we have differences of agendas that we would like to pursue. But I will tell you that we all are representing the United States of America in the best fashion that I know that we truly believe in. So thank you, and it is a privilege.
Good start.
When I walk out every evening from the Longworth office building, I will tell you that as I look back on the Capitol with the lights gleaming upon it, that I recognize the honor, the privilege, and the responsibility that each one of us has taken on to be in this place that we are right now, and the obligations that we have to the districts that we represent back home. It is an incredible privilege, but it is also an incredible responsibility, and I do not take it lightly, and I know that no one in this room does. We are participating in a system that has endured 247 years, through drought and through flood, through world wars and through a civil war. And some way we return to this place year after year to serve the people of the United States of America. But unfortunately, over the past 15 years, the process that we use has been dramatically broken. The voices that were sent here to equally represent each of the 435 districts across this nation have become diminished. This through the consolidation of power into the hands of the Speaker and a fortunate few who happen to serve on the Rules Committee, which control every aspect of legislation that travels through this body. The debate and the discussion has been all but eliminated, and the balance of us are left to vote yes or no. Those are our options, and that is what has led to the disintegration of the relationships that we see across this floor. That is not equal representation, which is guaranteed by our Constitution and expected by our constituents. We have had more discussion and debate over the last 3 days than I have participated in on this floor for the last 2 years. And it's healthy. It absolutely promotes the collegiality that everyone is striving to obtain. We're having discussions not just within our own party, but amongst each other as we walk around and start planning for the legislation that we will need to address over the next 2 years in the 118th Congress, that sooner or later, yes, sooner or later, we will begin to function as. Those are the good days. And guess what? Our constituents think, as they watch us on C-SPAN today, that this is how every day functions. They think that this is how every bill gets addressed in this body. And they will be shocked to learn, the ones that you have not disclosed the little nasty secret to, that unfortunately, that's not how it works around this place. That under the current rules and under the current leadership construction, that on fly-in days, typically Monday at the beginning of the week, the leadership on both sides of the aisle negotiate a number of bills, 15 to 20 pieces of legislation that one Democrat and one Republican stand on this floor. They discuss momentarily, and then they say the magic words, without objection, we will pass this by unanimous consent. And there are two people standing on the floor passing pieces of legislation that oftentimes are the naming of buildings that don't really bother anybody or affect one's life, but in many circumstances spend millions and tens of millions of dollars that the taxpayers are obligated to cover, and their representative was not even here to vote upon it. And that, my friends, is wrong. It is wrong. So yes, we need to have change. We need to fix this broken system. Several of us have taken it upon ourselves to fly in and object to those very bills. Not because we are objecting to the bill, but just to force them to be brought out into the daylight so that everyone can hear about those bills. To force people to come out and vote up or down for those bills. as their constituents believe that they are doing right now. That's just one of the little secrets. And it demonstrates, again, how broken this system is. Last summer, we began to negotiate, a group of us, in good faith, a list of changes, amendments to the rules of this body, not to empower ourselves, not to bring personal benefit to ourselves, but to empower you, and you, and you, Maxine, and you, and you, and everyone sitting in this chamber equally. There's no rules. I did not use anyone's name. Everyone should be... Excuse me. Maxine.
Member, direct your remarks to the chair, please.
I will, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you. That is so that everyone will have equal representation. Equal representation for the districts that elected them. These are not radical deviations from the norm. These are a restoration of the rules so that this place can function properly. Things like single subject legislation that most state houses utilize right now so that we don't have 4,000-page documents that we are given a matter of hours to review that are filled with many, many subject matters that are trillions of dollars in cost. Rules like germaneness, so that you can actually bring an amendment forward on the floor as long as it pertains to the bill that was originally being addressed. An open rule process, again, so that each individual here can participate in the thing that we were sent here to do, to help collaborate and craft legislation and work together. That is what we were sent here to do. These are common sense amendments that would restore the process and give each of us an equal voice. This is how we're going to secure the border. That everyone now, I do believe, has recognized that there is a problem with. This is how we are going to regain energy dominance again, which is not just an economic issue, it is a national security issue. This is how we are going to reduce the inflation rate, by working together. But we cannot call it working together if you cede all of that power to the hands of a few.
Amen.
Hoping for this change will not create this change. And change is uncomfortable. We understand that. But it is not unachievable. And we must make change in this broken system. We must. The current leadership that is in place will continue and support the use of earmarks in this body. And that is the golden trail to corruption. The golden trail to corruption. It is a way to buy votes and spread money around this body from places outside of this city that leads to bad legislation and bad decisions. The current leadership, I was told, I should not be so concerned with these suspension bills that get passed every week, because now they have made an amendment. We keep hearing about these amendments and the concessions that were made. The concession was that they will not ask for anything to be suspended that costs more than $100 million. Now, I don't know about the neighborhoods that you live in, But the neighborhood that I live in, $100 million is a lot of money. And my constituents expect me to vote upon $100 million bills and $80 million bills and $10 million bills so that they know what in the world is in them and what is going on. And they do not expect them to be passed by unanimous consent with no one on the floor.
Yes.
I made a living developing property. And as many of you probably know, it takes a while to take a piece of ground from bare earth to a community. And my mother, God rest her soul, came out to one of my projects. And I had just opened it up. And it had been 2 years since the time I had bought the property. And by the time we went out, I had a nice entrance built, and the streets were built, and the street lights were there, and they were just starting to build homes. And she said, "My goodness, Matthew, you must really, really be pleased to finally see your project coming up out of the ground." And I said, "No, Mom, actually, I'm pleased that everyone else can see it, because I sold it 2 years ago when I first walked out there." Well, I have a vision for this place, that we can restore regular order so that each of us may have the ability to represent our districts and our constituents equally as we move through this process.
And McCarthy's against all of it, or you wouldn't have to negotiate.
At that time, we will be able to call it truly the people's house again. I have been here just 2 years, and I have watched Byron Donalds during that time and previously as he proudly served in the Florida legislature. And I can tell you this, he's a man of intellect, he is a man of integrity, and he is a man that I am proud to nominate as the next Speaker of the House of Representatives.
That was a great speech. I don't know if it landed the same way with other people because it was disjointed. His style is unusual. I might have to cover that separately. That speech was the best speech, I think, out of all the ones I heard.
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Kevin Hern as Speaker of the House.
The gentlewoman is right.
Kevin Hern is somebody Matt Gaetz referenced 2 months ago.
Well, we've presented many plans and are even presenting 2 plans simultaneously right now for Speaker of the People's House. I sat in my chair anticipating to vote for Byron Donalds, whom I respect, whom I see as a leader. And there was a gut check that said, we need someone that is going to convince my colleagues on this side of the aisle that it's time to get going. It's time to build momentum. Many of you have said it. You see that Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes. You are understanding that he is not going to get there. We had the votes for him. I cannot produce those anymore. The colleagues that I brought with me to offer those 218 votes on the first ballot aren't there anymore. It is not happening. And as it's been said, we need to get to a point where we start evaluating what life after Kevin McCarthy looks like. America doesn't want more talk, and I'm going to keep my speech a little short. They want action. I'll take that.
We don't need to rush the
get to work
speeches.
too.
I know they don't mean anything, but there's no need to rush them.
This isn't chaos. This is a constitutional republic at work. I'm a mom of 4 boys. I know what chaos and dysfunction looks like. This is actually a really beautiful thing to be here with all of my colleagues debating. Just as the gentleman from Montana said, we have not experienced this in the 2 years that we have served here in Washington, D.C. This is the most debate that has taken place, and I love it. I love the conversations that are going on the floor, in the cloakroom, in the halls. There's nothing extreme, there's nothing unreasonable. We're trying to get this right. As my conservative colleagues and I have stated time and time again, Congress is broken and fundamentally needs change. I'm here to get this right. We need a leader that is not of the broken system, someone who is not beholden to the lobbyists, but to the people who sent us here, someone who can unite our party, and most importantly, someone who can deliver on the promises that we have all made to the American people. I believe that there are many people on the floor today that can do just that. I've voted for my friend Jim Jordan. I've voted for my friend Byron Donalds. I'm voting for Kevin Hern, the gentleman from Oklahoma. Mr. Hern went from rags to riches, and like myself and many other members, is a small business owner. He has lived the American dream. He's a father, a family man, and as Kevin likes to say, he's a conservative, but he's not mad about it. We can have a happy warrior leading us. I understand that threats have been made about committee assignments, that you won't receive committee assignments if you do not vote for Kevin McCarthy. That is true. It happened in conference, and that is exactly what we were told. But we don't govern in fear. We govern for the people on principle. Don't be afraid to do the right thing. I believe that Kevin Hern is a unifier. He just received the chairman of the Republican Study Committee by unanimous consent. This is the largest caucus in our conference. Look how many people have already put their trust in Kevin Hern to lead them. I get asked by my constituents, where does this go? Who can unify the party? Who can deliver results? Representative Kevin Hern can do just that, and I am proud to enter his name into the nomination, and I hope that some of you join me. Thank you, and I yield back.
The reading clerk will call the roll. Adams. Jeffries. Adderholt. McCarthy. Aguilar. Jeffries. McCarthy. Allen. McCarthy. Allred.
The House is but people got to tell their congressman, if they're one of those 20, that the House is shut down. We're not working on the issues that we campaigned on, like lowering inflation, securing the border, supporting our law enforcement, standing up to China. None of this is happening. All our committees are now shut down, and it's on these 20 people. They're embarrassing the House. They're embarrassing the Republicans. They're embarrassing our country. So I think over time, with bring our law enforcement. Standing up to China. None of this is happening. All our committees are now shut down, and it's on these 20 people. They're embarrassing the House, they're embarrassing the Republicans, they're embarrassing our country. So I think over time with focus, we'll get some of these over. But we also have to be willing to consider working with the Democrats at some point to get some work on some concessions to get some support there if these 20 refuse to budge. But we also have to be willing to consider working with the Democrats at some point to get some work on some concessions to get some support there if these 20.
I apologize. I've been muted the whole time, of course. But thanks for hanging in there. Yes, I haven't done that in a while. I was due for one. And now this is the moment where I have to get past being mad at myself. It's kind of like a cornerback getting beat on a deep out, and you have to pretend like it didn't happen and get back for the next snap. So let me bring it back. Let's start here. I started with here. At least you could hear the sound of the video I played. So so what I'm showing here is a breakdown. This is the same spreadsheet that I used during Force the Vote 2 years ago. I just went to Google Sheets and said, oh, is it still there? I haven't touched it. I showed the people on the populist left how Kevin McCarthy could become Speaker. I didn't say it was likely. I mean, it's just something to think about. It's not impossible. And one of the weirdest things happened in the channel, the populist left I showed them the facts of it and they still didn't believe me. It's just weird how the leftist mentality, whether it's corporate or populist, they don't really do well with facts. I don't know what that is. It's an emotional thing. But I have the facts here, and I said, hey, if anybody can correct my math, I'm fine with it. No one has corrected it. It's accurate it's not complicated. Now, I could mess it up. I used to be a math major, but I could still mess it up. This is very simple. So he was talking about working with Democrats. What does that mean? So what we've seen here is, let me go back to this one with the present vote. So this is what we're seeing here when they're doing the votes. What we're seeing is Jeffries gets 212. If you're just listening, I have a spreadsheet here. Jeffries has 212. McCarthy has 201. Anyone else, doesn't matter. I'm just putting Trump, Donald, whoever. They don't have 218, so it doesn't matter. What do I have it open twice. I don't know why I have two stuff there, but so there. Anyone else gets 20, and then under present doesn't count. So if you vote present, that takes your vote total down. Why am I at 232? Wait, what am I doing here? Oh, McCarthy has 213, doesn't it? Jeffries has 212. Sorry, I should have 434 votes. Yeah. Okay, so it is right. So let me show you the scenarios that could happen is my point here. Well, so this is my point. So you need to have more than these votes. So there's 434 total votes if everyone has to be there physically. Remember 2 years ago, Nancy Pelosi brought, I forget who they were, they had just recovered from the pandemic illness, and she still brought them through. I think one of them was still testing positive. She had to bring them through because if they didn't come, there are no rules in the House. So they didn't set a rule where you can vote proxy or via Zoom. You have to be in the building. You have to be there. So when you look at it, everybody's there, 434. It's normally 435. Why is it only 434? Because unfortunately, I forgot his name, Virginia Congressman Donald something, unfortunately passed away. So there's only going to be a max of 434 votes. Anyone who votes present, so let me take the 20 out of here and put 1 here, takes away from the total. I'm messing up the math here. So the total should be 433, I think. I'm messing this up a little bit, but my point is, if that happens, if somebody votes present, then they're out of the total, is my understanding. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong. I'll take a look at the chat. So GB has said McCarthy loses again. So now it's going to be a matter of how much does he lose by, basically, is what we're looking at. So let me look if this is, so why do I have this messed up where my total votes, I'm summing up 4. Okay, so I think I should probably do this. Okay. So I think I can just leave it like this. So you would have 430. So I think this is accurate here because that's what's happening right now. The present vote does not count because it's not a vote for somebody. You have to get the plurality of so you have to get 50% of the people who voted. Present doesn't count. So what he's saying is working with the Democrats is he could say, oh, it's not going to be Jeffries, but you could get people to say, well, I won't vote. So let's say you've got so right now it's at 1. I could go in here and say, instead of 20 people doing that, let's say some people don't vote for McCarthy. Let's say these are Republicans, and then 10, it's a lot, but let's say 10, so it's 191 now, and then there's 11 people voting present. Jeffries would be Speaker. Are you following what I'm doing here? Hopefully it's not. It's kind of disjointed. I apologize. But the point is to see. So the total votes is 423 because 11 people were present. So you only need half of that. You need 212 under this scenario. Hakeem Jeffries would be Speaker. Period. The math is here. It's all out there for you. So it is a fact that could happen. Is it likely? We're in over a century uncharted waters. So I don't even know if it makes sense to say what's likely or what's not. Because what's the political price for the 10 defectors from McCarthy to vote present? Most people aren't following this stuff. So people could be in their ear and saying you can vote president because if you vote president, you didn't vote for for Jeffries. You allowed Jeffries to become Speaker, but you didn't vote for him. So nobody could accuse you of directly voting for Jeffries. Of course, people would try to explain to the public you voted present, which allowed Jeffries, but nobody's paying attention that closely. Believe it or not, it's like you and us in the chat, it's like a small percentage of people even paying attention to this stuff. So you see how easily that could happen. It's not that easy, but you could see how it could happen. There's a bunch of different scenarios you could see. What AOC said is, I'm not going to let McCarthy win. AOC is open, allegedly, to working with Republicans, but she said it's not going to be McCarthy. She understands it wouldn't be Jeffries either. They would have to negotiate who that is. I have no idea who both Dems and Republicans would get behind in the House. I don't think that person exists. That's why people are saying it's unlikely. Could you have Dems vote present to allow McCarthy to win? I don't see that. It's possible. I think it's more likely that there are Republicans who are in purple districts that would allow Jeffries to win. That's just my opinion. By voting present. That's the easiest route in this whole thing because Jeffries he has more votes. So if you lower the total, like say you take 12 out of Jeffries. So you take 200 there and then make this 13. Whoops. You still don't have it. You're not even close. You need to get McCarthy over 50. So you would have to take 13 out of there. I took 12 out of there. You got to take another. I mean, it's not happening. Wait, what did I do here? So no, I don't see the path. The path would have to lower Jeffries because McCarthy would need to get more votes. So that's the math that their staffers have a spreadsheet just like this. They're doing the same thing, I would assume. There's the only route that I see is Jeffries. Now, there could be someone, if they could find someone else, let's just say Magic Party shill. It's name it in the chat. Who could it be? Yes. So thank you, Milo, for confirming. So Milo confirmed that I'm right. Present doesn't count. If you're in the chat, tell me if you know of a name that possibly could be that Magic Uniparty shill. It's not Kevin McCarthy. It's not Steve Scalise. I don't know who that would be, but let's say that there is a person like that. Then you would be able to do it. But who could it be? Because you would have to be, as a Democrat, saying you're going to not vote for the first black. They're into identity. So I guess I'll leave that alone. That's kind of messy how I kind of explained it, but hopefully it was clear enough that it is a possibility, without question. anything going on here. Yeah, so Tony's talking about it too. Yeah, it's my spreadsheet. So, but I mean, you see the basic point of it is they can change their votes and manipulate their votes to do it. And you could see this is what Matt Gaetz and them were doing the math, and they're like, "There's no way." They're like, That's why Matt Gaetz was like, the risk is low. So you could see how because I know this. So when Marjorie Taylor Greene said the risk is that Hakeem Jeffries could be speaker, that was the exact same argument that any type of corporate shill was saying against force the vote. Now, I was saying it could happen, but I was still for force the vote. MTG was saying it could happen, and we can't force the vote. So you could see how I'm like, I don't know what Marjorie Taylor Greene's talking about. There's no, especially with Jeffries being black, it really throws another wrench into it. Who are you going to throw him off under the bus for? There's no candidate that they would pick. So I still maintain if it's not McCarthy, then Jeffries is the next likely one. And I think there is a possibility. It's definitely greater than zero. It would be a shocking development. There would be a complete sneak job. This would be done through very secret meetings. I don't know how they do it with text or phone. They could. They could be sneaking communications because they don't want the media to know they're talking. So they could be sneaking communications. All they need, because if you're predictable and we know, okay, it's only 20 people on the Republicans voting anyone else, one person voting present, then we know we need exactly 10. Take that number down to 191. If we got 10 people to just vote present, then Hakeem has it. That's the magic number for the Dems to say if we can convert 10 purple Republican House representatives, so meaning they're purple, meaning their district could go either way. Their district doesn't look at Hakeem Jeffries in a bad light. Lauren Underwood's in that type of district. She's a Democrat, though. But she's Illinois 14, I believe. She could do something like that, in my opinion, and she'd be fine because she's like 50-50. And who's paying attention to this stuff anyway? So if they get 10 people to go present, they don't even have to vote for Jeffries. So you can see how the danger is going, and you don't know if they're going to make that move until the roll call. So there is a danger there. I think that's the number one danger. I don't see anything else. I don't understand. I don't know how there could be another avenue. So this could be a while. I guess that's the bottom line point. This could be a while. I saw this disturbing video. Let me show that real quick. It's nothing graphic in the video. It is scary though. I'll say that. This video that I'm showing you right now through Ian Miles Chung, and he got it from somewhere else, I think, but absolutely insane. Cartel members opened fire on a commercial aircraft in Kulilakan in retaliation. Sorry, I can't pronounce that. Kulilakan in retaliation to the arrest and capture of El Chapo's son. Cartel members opening fire on a commercial aircraft. We're not going to see anything graphic. It's just people on the plane, and you could imagine how scary this would be. You could hear somebody say, "What happened? What happened?" So I have not independently confirmed this, but it looks legit, and Ian Miles Chung is a legit source. The cartels, the Mexican cartels, opened fire on a commercial aircraft. I don't know what day this happened. It's posted from him today. I don't know what day this happened. Rush Limbaugh's trending. Wow. They opened fire on a commercial aircraft. Here's another thing with Donald Trump. Donald Trump kind of addressed this, believe it or not. It's weird. Donald Trump is on point and then at the same time off the mark with his timing. Here's a speech from Donald Trump. It's just 2 minutes. I'll play from that about he will send U.S. military to declare the cartels enemy combatants.
Our country is being poisoned from within by the drugs and by all of the other crime that's taking place. The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels. We will show no mercy on the cartels. Every day, drug traffickers are using the waters of our region to ship their lethal poisons to America, killing so many of our people and ruining families. In addition to restoring strong border security, I will deploy all necessary military assets, including the U.S. Navy, to impose the full naval embargo on the cartels. We will guarantee that the waters of the Western Hemisphere are not used to traffic illicit drugs to our country. Furthermore, I will order the Department of Defense to make appropriate use of special forces, cyber warfare, and other overt and covert actions to inflict maximum damage on cartel leadership, infrastructure, and operations. I will designate the major cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. We will sever their access to global financial systems. I will also work to forge an unprecedented partnership with neighboring governments in our region. Either we will get the full cooperation of other governments to stop this menace, or we will expose every bribe, every kickback, every payoff, and every bit of corruption that is allowing the cartels to preserve their brutal reign, and it is indeed brutal. Finally, as I have said before, I will ask Congress to pass legislation ensuring that drug smugglers and human traffickers receive the death penalty. The drug cartels and their allies in the Biden administration have the blood of countless millions on their hands. Millions and millions of families and people are being destroyed. When I'm back in the White House, the drug kingpins and vicious traffickers will never sleep soundly again. We did it once, and we did it better than anybody else. There's never been a better border than we had just 2 years ago. It was strong, it was powerful, and it was respected all over the world. And now we're laughed at all over the world. And we're not going to let that happen much longer. We have to take over, we have to be tough, we have to be smart, we have to be fair. But if we don't do something immediately, our country is gone.
So that's the clip there. And you can believe that. I can believe that. It is credible. My wife is distracting me, so I'm going to try and concentrate. But yeah, I believe that, and what he said there is true. I mean, it is, the border has been, it was better under him. I mean, I think that's undeniable. And he's on point with that video just coming out, and then, of course, all the other issues with the border. My only concern there is the speaker situation is what's in the news right now. So why is Pappy letting this, his timing is off. Just like he did with the NFT stuff. He did the NFT stuff, and then he did the great announcement on the Digital Bill of Rights. It was overshadowed by the NFT stuff. Why were they on the same day? Why were they so close? Why was it so confusing with the major announcement? I don't even know which one he was really talking about. And today, it's all speaker. No one's really talking about this, but it's a good message, at least to me. And it also goes against the CI Pause A. It goes against the 3-letter agencies. And let me, shoot, I thought I had a clip here. So I do have a clip from, there was this great podcast that had I think it was an undercover, like ex-government agency person on there talking about the cartels. Let me pull this up real quick. I think I just search Darren Beatty cartels. And here it is. So Trump making that message is pretty strong. It's going against these 3-letter agencies. Here's what it sounds like.
Is the CIA working with the cartels?
Yeah. I mean, short answer is yes.
They are.
Yeah, man.
So he just said the three-letter agency is working with the same type of groups that was gack at that commercial airliner. And the same groups, working with the same groups that Pappy Don said he's going to go against. So I like the message.
Not only the CIA, also, I guess every other agency in the U.S. or every three-lettered agency in the U.S.
DEA,
is
CIA, yeah.
FBI. You know, like most of those guys are collaborating with narcos, not only in Mexico but all through Latin America, man. And I mean, they're not. It's not like they're like smuggling drugs themselves, but it's like they're breaking deals. El narco, the drug traffickers in Mexico, the issue has gotten so big right now that it is easily, it's very easy to unstabilize a country through el narco, through violence, through drug trafficking, and all of that shit. And I know
who's really backing them too, allegedly, from what I've shown. I'm not going to digress too much, but I have shown some what you could call receipts to back up my claim in previous videos. Go back and listen to the ones where I talked about Caitlin Johnstone, is the CCP. The CCP is backing these cartels. The CCP is just dominating. They didn't take the mRNAs. They didn't want any part of it. And every other country that did is learning some things out, let's say. They're learning that things happen suddenly. They're backing the cartels that are coming across the border. They're funneling the human direction of people across the border along with the products that people use like fentanyl. All of it ties back to the CCP.
fact that some of these narcos, they don't even know they're being played by...
You think this type of stuff would ever happen to the CCP? Like, you think they would allow Mexican cartels to run up in their country? You must be crazy.
By U.S. agencies to destabilize, the Mexican government or Mexican forces,
So what specifically is the U.S.'s involvement with these cartels? Like, you told me to watch that documentary on Amazon Prime, I think it's called The Last Narc.
The Last Narc.
Mm-hmm. Who was the guy's name? It was the Mexican DEA agent who was basically murdered by a couple drug lords, and there was a famous or a very well-known clandestine CIA agent there,
Yeah.
Felix Rodriguez.
Exactly.
And they murdered this guy who worked for the DEA.
Yeah.
What is their specific involvement, and what is in it? What is the incentive to work together?
I think the involvement has a lot of layers. So one of the main layers is supplying aircrafts or legal entrance under the radar to drug into the U.S. I guess that's something that the U.S. has offered before, but
that doesn't really answer the question. So he doesn't answer this question well. This is a great question. Why? Why would our government be in cahoots with them?
A lot of layers. So one of the main layers is supplying aircrafts or legal entrance under the radar to drug into the U.S. I guess that's something that the U.S. has offered before, but
why?
There is a lot of collaboration.
So he didn't. I watched that whole. It's on Concrete. It's great. I watched that whole thing. He never really answered that, and I think it's because it's China. It's all because China's funneling it. And I think there are elements in the U.S. government that agree with a one Earth government. And if you want to make North America, South America, or North America and Mexico and the U.S. one nation, I did a video on that. The people who run Mexico isn't the Mexican government, it's the cartels. So the government agencies will work with whoever's running the government. If you make North America, if you make Canada, U.S., and Mexico one nation, like one country, literally, say we're now one union, like the EU, then it's easier for the One Earth government people to say, okay, Constitution, that doesn't apply. We like what Justin Trudeau's doing against guns and all that type of stuff. So then it's easier. Now that wouldn't happen overnight, but in my opinion, that's why it's happening. And what Grandpappy Don was talking about is going against that. Let me know what you think. I'm still mad about the mute. I'm trying to toughen through it, y'all. I appreciate you sticking through it. I'm gonna be out in a little bit, but I just want to see what's up. Any news on the count? We've been through 9 of these, so I'm like, wait, do I have it here? No, where is it? Let's see. I think ABC's done with it too.
And yet a fond farewell too.
Especially since it looks like McCarthy lost again, appears to lose 9th round of voting. And I think that means we're in unprecedented territory, right? Because in 100 years ago, I think it was settled after 9 rounds, if I'm not mistaken. You can tell, you can tell what they think of you. The same thing, so McCarthy is going to be just selfishly, I don't have to go anywhere. He doesn't have to do anything. But selfishly, he's just going to sit there because he's got the media on his side. Even the longer he sits, you're hearing Charlie Kirk. You're hearing people that you would think are allies in this challenge of power. You're seeing them not change their mind, but go against it. So if you're going to see people like that go against it, then you would just wait longer. That's what Kevin McCarthy would do, just beat you over the head, figuratively. Just let it keep going because they're going to fight. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert go at it more. And Steve Bannon on Getter. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is getting wrecked on Getter every single day. Prince Harry describes physical altercation with brother William. What's this?
Harry's memoir, Spare, Rocking the Royal Family. The Guardian, publishing an excerpt, it says, is from his upcoming book, detailing an alleged attack by his brother Prince William during a heated confrontation over Harry's wife, Meghan. Harry reportedly writing that William called Meghan, quote, rude, difficult, and abrasive. And as the argument escalated, Harry claims William, quote, grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace, and knocked me to the floor. I landed on a dog's bowl, which cracked under my back, the pieces cutting into me. I lay there for a moment, dazed, then got to my feet and told him to get out. The Guardian reporting the episode took place in 2019 as Harry and William met to talk about what Harry calls the whole rolling catastrophe of their relationship and issues with the press. Now, in a new interview airing this Monday on GMA, Harry telling me about the rift between the brothers.
There's a quote in this book where you refer to your brother as your beloved brother and arch nemesis. Strong words. What did you mean by that?
There has always been this competition between us, weirdly. I think it really plays into, or is played by, the heir spare.
Okay. I don't know why. Don't ask me why I laughed when he cracked his back on a dog bowl. There's a lot, if you're going to be on live, you're going to have moments that you're not proud of. So don't ask me why. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's just funny. I don't know. Whoa, what's this?
In just a moment. Keep it here.
That looks like a serious conversation. It's hard to tell. They're just talking. Who knows? That one looked kind of serious with Byron Donalds. But I don't even know anymore. I lost my place. Ryan Smar says Johnson & Johnson makes this F drug. They are also the first company to build a pharmaceutical plant in that country, the CECP, China. Yep. So Kevin McCarthy's beating everybody down figuratively to wear them out, and you're seeing people turn, and that's what he's going to keep doing. I don't know if he's going to change that, because you look at it like a math equation as the x-axis, as time goes on, x-axis goes longer. he believes his chances at Speaker go higher. So as long as he believes that, he's just going to sit out. He could sit out. Because they think the longer it goes on, the more that we can smear the 20 or so as whatever. So they're going to want to try and get more than just the 2021. So it shows, hey, we're not getting smaller, we're getting bigger. That's why Sean Hannity said by Friday, if you don't have 30, because he just made up a number, what he's saying is, if you're not getting bigger, then are you going to reevaluate? Because as time goes on, we're going to smear you, Lauren. Basically, Sean Hannity was basically telling her, as time goes on, we're going to smear you as incompetent, embarrassing, all that other stuff. So we're still in that 9th vote. Still in a hairy situation. Let's take a look in. I'm going to go right now and see. Yeah, let me go through here. I'm just going to go on and see if I can get any kind of breaking news. See if Charlie Kirk is doing anything real quick. I doubt he's still streaming now. He's done with that stuff. I would assume. I assumed incorrect, but he might just be streaming the vote. I do see he has a stream up, yeah. Looks like he's just streaming the vote. And right now, Donalds has 16 votes and Hearn has 3. So I will play this clip again because Matt Gaetz talked about it. I'm gonna play a clip from Matt Gaetz because this is one of the people, Kevin Hearn is one of the people that he mentioned 2 months ago as a possibility for Speaker. So here's a possibility. This is again 2 months ago, November 14th on the Charlie Kirk show. He mentioned Jody Arrington, Roger Williams, Tim Burkett, Kevin Hearns, is that Tom Womack or Steve Womack, and Patrick McHenry as people that he would think could get the votes to be Speaker.
Let's go through, a few people who I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike these members of Congress. And by the way, I would not be on this list. But I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Jody Arrington. I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Roger Williams. I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Tim Burchett. I don't believe there are 5 people who like Kevin Hearn. I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Steve Womack. And I don't think there are 5 people who dislike Patrick McHenry. Let's go through, a few people who I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike these members of Congress. And by the way, I would not be on this list. But I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Jody Arrington. I don't believe there are 5 people.
So as you can hear, he had these people named 2 months ago. So the argument that what's your answer doesn't make any sense. They've been talking about it since November, right after the election. We knew this was going to be a problem. The negotiations actually started in the summer because everybody was thinking about the red wave. They already knew this was going to happen. So early negotiations started in the summer. Lauren Boebert talked about that. So let me go back, see if they're probably still on the roll call.
New nomination, debating every point we possibly can. White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks with me now. Why don't we go back to what we just witnessed before the break, and that was yet another nomination, this time by Representative Lauren Boebert. This time it was Republican Kevin Hearn of Oklahoma that she has now thrown into the mix. This was someone, yesterday, the day before, Mary Alice, that said, why doesn't Trump encourage Kevin McCarthy to withdraw and pull out? And we saw that Trump has just been a non-player here. Nobody's listening to Trump. So whether Trump called Kevin McCarthy or not, no one's listening to him. So it doesn't seem like that would go anywhere. So now she's jumping in, making yet another nomination, this time for Kevin Hearn of Oklahoma. What do we know about Kevin Hearn? How does this change up the strategy here, if at all?
Yeah, I do think this was an interesting moment, Kira. We, so far, the last few days, have really seen those defectors, about 19 or 20 defectors, mostly stick together. They've mostly backed the same candidate. First it was Jim Jordan, then Donald. But this was interesting in that we actually saw in that group of defectors two different nominating speeches this last time. One for Byron Donalds again, and another from Lauren Boebert for Kevin Hern. And what I found really interesting in those two speeches was essentially a breakdown of the problem that Kevin McCarthy faces. In the first speech, Matt Rosendale of Montana was nominating Byron Donalds, and he talked about basically really little changes that he'd like to see in the House rules. I mean, I say little because they're very wonky, though they could have a big impact on exactly which bills are brought to the floor or exactly how votes are done, which votes are done in voice vote. Basically, he listed out a bunch of policy changes that he wants to see, suggesting to me that he's still asking for some of those concessions, still asking for a deal to be reached. But then, just moments after that, we saw Lauren Boebert, another one of these defectors who's been very much anti-McCarthy, voting no every time on his nomination, and she gave a very different speech. It was not about asks. It was not about things that she wanted to see a sort of deals on. It wasn't things she was asking for. She used very stark language where she said she just doesn't think McCarthy has the votes, that they've shown over and over he doesn't have the votes. She used interesting language where she encouraged her colleagues to look at a life post-McCarthy, that it's time to move on.
If you have Lauren Boebert's speech was excellent.
She said, I don't even have the same votes I had that I felt like I had a few days ago. I don't actually know if she had votes to move around a few days ago, but she was really trying to implore her colleagues to look past deal making and look past Kevin McCarthy. And I think that split screen, those two different defectors giving two very different speeches, was really telling for the trouble that McCarthy is in. Because even if he does convince some people to come over, make some deals, do some wheeling and dealing here, does he do enough of that to have the votes? I mean, we've talked for days about how he can only lose 4, and she suggested that no deal making was going to get him close to that, Kira.
Wow. Former Republican for Georgia, former congressman, also an ABC News contributor now, Tom Graves, joining us in this conversation. So Tom, McCarthy has still failed to flip any votes, as we've just been discussing. Do you think that there is any chance of that changing, any chance at all? And why do you think that he went into this without knowing that he had the votes? I mean, he had so many years to prepare for this moment. What happened?
At this time.
Yeah, so to your first question, does he have the chance to change some votes? Yeah, I do. I do think he does have that opportunity, and he's working towards that. I think he went into today hoping to show improvement from the previous days, and it looks like it's gone one vote away from him in that direction, and no one else has moved.
Oh, wait.
But I was interested in Will Hurd's, former Congressman Will Hurd from Texas. He had an op-ed today in the Wall Street Journal that talked about, the title was "The Tragedy of Kevin McCarthy." And it goes through the last 10, 12 years of Kevin McCarthy's effort to build the Republican Party in the House of Representatives and how it was built to this point. And now he's sort of trapped in it with the very members he was recruiting and electing and helped raise money for, and including supporting former President Trump and others. And now that's led to this moment. So how does he get out of it? There's only a couple of options. One is that there's a negotiation that occurs. There's an agreement that everybody is in full agreement in, and then everybody comes out together, holds a nice press conference, and moves forward, and he becomes the speaker. Second is, he has to negotiate across the aisle. Now, that's very unlikely. I don't expect that would ever happen, but that is obviously an option. And then the last option is, and again, unlikely, but it is an option, is that he would have to remove his name from nomination to put his support behind somebody else. And after 9 rounds, I know that he's got to be employing all these different options and wondering which path does he take. It's a very difficult fork.
But he's already given so many concessions, Tom. What more can he do to flip a vote?
I don't know that there is much more he can do to flip the number of votes he needs. It does seem to have gotten very personal, and there are a lot of individuals, it appears to be, that are just anybody but.
There it is. There's their BS meter. It appears to have gotten personal. What makes you say that? Air it out. Why would you say that? Maybe there is some personal stuff. I don't know, but I haven't heard it. So don't just say that. If you're going to say it's personal, then you got to bring it out.
And that he can't change. He is Kevin, right? And he can't change who he is. And so that's.
But you got 21 people who are Republicans who are not voting for him. So it's a lot of personal going on with 21 people. That's not personal anymore. That's a problem. Personal is like one-on-one.
There presents the challenge. Now, let's say he does create some sort of package of negotiation of rules changes, whatever they might be. But that is for the 20. Again, this is 20 versus 1 in the moment. There are 201 other Republicans then that have to agree with whatever changes he negotiated on their behalf as well. And that has to be presented to the full Republican conference. And hopes would be that everybody would be in agreement with what he had to, I guess in essence, some might say cave to, which I don't consider that. Negotiation is negotiation, but you never know how to be perceived.
Now, the point was made earlier today. We've been talking with so many different people. I think it might have been even, it was. I think it was Congressman Joe Crowley, former Democrat, New York. This is happening a day before the 2-year anniversary of January 6th, the insurrection. If indeed we are in this same position, dealing with this on the floor, not coming to a deal, tomorrow on the 2-year mark of January 6th, I mean, how does this make Republicans look? I mean, the optics here, you talk about, an embarrassing moment already. It just doesn't bode well for Republicans.
Yeah, whether it's January 5th today or January 6th tomorrow, the 7th, it's still difficult for the Republican Party. And now, and this is a period in time that the Republicans will get through, and there will be a Republican speaker at some point, and then the Republicans will move forward in governing. The people to watch right now, though, are, and it's, I've sort of been looking for this, is where's Jim Jordan? Is he a part of the negotiations with Leader McCarthy or Speaker-elect McCarthy and others? Or not. And, he seems to have been a little bit silent. I haven't really seen him out there on behalf of either group.
They said that McCarthy lost George Santos, the goofiest. George Santos is just goofy, man. He just looks goofy. I can't. I'm sorry. That's not another bad moment, but he does look goofy. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey sitting together, it looks like. I can't really see Marjorie's face, but they are reportedly good friends. Actually had a great episode of Timcast with both of them.
This Republican Pete Sessions, who's stepped up to our live mark there up on the Hill where Jay O'Brien has been reporting.
But they said McCarthy lost the vote from the day. I don't think that's accurate. The votes were 20 other one present yesterday, wasn't it? Did he lose a vote? I don't think he... Yeah, wait, where's the one? What is happening here? McCarthy has 200. He had 201. Oh, let me see. What am I missing? There's 212 plus the 201. So that's 413. Then 230. What am I missing? Why doesn't he have the, did they not finish? Why doesn't he have the one? Oh, they just haven't finished counting. They just haven't finished updating it, right? Yeah, McCarthy should have 201. This is incorrect, I believe.
As long as it takes, yell as loud as they need to yell, and to keep Kevin McCarthy from being the next speaker. Now, with that said, they've raised during this period of time lots of issues, lots of flags, lots of...
Unless somebody didn't vote. Maybe somebody's not present.
We now understand, and I think...
Not being physically present is different than voting present, but in effect, they're the same thing. But they wouldn't come up on the vote total. There's Cori Bush down here on the right.
A day or two ago.
Maxine Waters, of course, up here. This is basically the Black Caucus.
But that's where we are, and this will continue until there's some change at that measure of who.
Now, they could all vote to just stop this until it's hashed out. That is a thing. They could vote, I don't know when, but they could vote and say right now, we're not voting. Our next scheduled vote is next Friday. They could, or whatever day. It's going to be Monday next week. And they could leave, and then just the movers and shakers would meet or whatever, and then they would figure it out. And then Monday, one vote, they know what's going to happen. Somebody said this, one of these analysts said it, and they're absolutely right. Nancy Pelosi would never, ever bring a vote if she didn't know she was going to win it like this. Never. She's one of the most clean-cut, savage politicians of all time. She would never be embarrassed in this way, in my opinion.
The things that we have right now are a group of people that are raising up extraneous matters, not the essence of what they really want. Oh, I think they did make progress last night in dealing with Mr. McCarthy. They talked about some of the campaign money that he had spent, including in primaries. So I think that's
Yeah. Let's talk about that. I didn't talk about that yet. So whatever gets my energy is what I usually like to talk about. That got my energy. This came out from Jack Posobiec, what he's referring to there. He didn't go into the details because it's kind of minutia. But let's go to Posobiec's timeline. Oh, I think I replied to it and I said something like pinky swear. So let's get to that. Okay, let's get this. So I'm going to share this tweet breaking from last night. Not breaking now. But again, this is the minutia. That's Elise Stefanik there. She has really risen up into power. Jack Posobiec tweeted last night, breaking, Kevin McCarthy leadership super PAC just cut a deal to not get involved in safe open seat primaries per Punchbowl News. So Jack's not reporting it. Punchbowl News is. I'll have to check them out. I don't really follow them. Why can't I say Punchbowl News? Punchbowl News. For many anti-McCarthy votes, this was a top concern. So people are in the replies like, here's my thought. Jack said, this paves the way for more MAGA candidates to win open seat primaries without facing well-funded establishment candidates. Okay. So I said, where is it here? So I said, the populist right had to make a deal with McCarthy, a completely untrustworthy swamp creature, that the other swamp creatures in this political action committee wouldn't get involved to sabotage and cannibalize their own party. Do I have that right? So this is the person that MTG supports. They're begging McCarthy to call off the super PAC from cannibalizing populist right candidates. That in and by itself proves he shouldn't be speaker. Now, most likely, if he's not a speaker, you'll get somebody who would support that. But still, off general principle, off GP, that's not good enough. And then what's to even hold them accountable to that? Oh, somebody said, you look right to me. Yeah, that's basically what it is. So I'm like, what's to stop them from starting a different super PAC? Or just going dark money where you can't even trace it? So they could say, yeah, we're not going to get involved. But then they just go all dark, more dark money. Basically where you just can't trace where it's at. The dark money, I define dark money by if I go to Open Secrets, I can't trace you where it came from. So go to Open Secrets if you want to see how any campaign's funded, and then they'll have a section, I think it says other, or it might even say dark money in there. And that's dark money. They don't know. They're like, this money came in, we don't know where it came from. I doubt they even have all of it. And then somebody said, what's to hold them accountable? Don't fall for it. I was like, I'm guessing there's a pinky swear involved or something. That's not a concession. Let me go back and see if what's going on. Oops.
Their best effort of what I think it's possible. What gives me that confidence? Being in Congress, working in private sector for 16 years, a deal is always possible. Things are not as bad as we think they are, nor are things as good as we want them to be.
The faces on the floor look different than the past days. Maybe it's just in my head, but the vibe looks different. It's not as laughy. Who knows?
I think after every vote, there is more resolve that we find that answer. And we've now finished, I think.
Why don't they have 201 from McCarthy? They only have 433 votes here. They're missing a vote.
I think there are a lot of members that are wanting to get home. It's been, so to speak, a long week. But I think we have to stay until we get.
You want me to shed a tear over you? I'm not shedding a tear. Go do some work.
Of course, the conversation is he's pretty much gutted his power. He has conceded on so many levels. Do you believe that is true? That his power is weakened, that even if he becomes speaker, that he will not be able to push legislation through or deal with hard votes, that he has lost respect among the party and will be a weak speaker?
Well, I don't know whether they've lost respect, but a weak speaker is exactly what I see. As chairman of the Rules Committee, we needed that authority and responsibility and support from the conference to make sure that we were a powerful conference, that we spoke with a voice that would be understood by the American people. So this goes back.
I agree with him completely. That's a fair analysis. Nobody's losing respect for the power of Kevin McCarthy. What's happening is he is going to be weakened. What that means is what I think a lot of people are concerned about. Actually, let me pull this up. I think I was listening to somebody, I forget who it was, and he told the truth. He said his real concern is, damn, if they can get Kevin out as speaker, they can do anything. Any piece of legislation that they bring or anything that they have to vote on, those 20 people, they have a lot of power. So he actually came up and just flat out said it. Let me see if I can find it. It was from Forbes. I don't even remember he was an ex-military guy. Damn. Let me see if I can find it. I actually listened to it a couple times yesterday. Going through your YouTube history is just, I don't know why they make it very hard in the history. Even to search through your history, you have to click view all. They don't want you going through your history. That's weird to me. I guess the algorithm wants to control everything. Let me see. What was it? It was, I want to find that clip because I almost wanted to save it. Let me go to Forbes. Let me put this back up and I'll go to Forbes and find it.
Strong ideas are coming through Mr. McCarthy's head at this point, and those around him, and he is well aware of them.
The President of the United States has called this whole scenario an embarrassment. Do you feel it's an embarrassment, Congressman?
I think that what happened is, if we want to go back, unwind time, we did not even know for 2 full weeks after the election who the majority would be. Then we immediately went into, which at least a few people tried to caution leadership or Mr. McCarthy, please do not go straight to election votes. Let's take the next few weeks to unwind our thoughts and ideas with each other. And that's where this process got off guard and it became a problem. And so then immediately a week after the election was held, Mr. McCarthy received the votes, and that's when the negotiating started. And it became difficult for Mr. McCarthy to negotiate with +3 or 4 membership numbers that turned out to, I think, to be about +7. And that put him in a weakened position for his ability, and it strengthened those who had wanted to negotiate and gave them full standing.
This guy's a straight shooter. He's a straight shooter. I agree with everything he just said.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I know it's been long days and long hours for all of you and all of us, and I just appreciate the conversation very much, Congressman.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, as you are watching live pictures from the floor here on Capitol Hill, Kevin McCarthy appearing to lose his 9th speaker vote right there. And as you heard Congressman Pete Sessions, he believes they're going to come to a deal. He wouldn't commit to when that could happen. I even asked if this could go on into the weekend, but he says he believes they will reach a deal and that Kevin McCarthy will become Speaker of the House. Let's listen in as the clerk has just gavelled us in once again.
The tellers agree in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 432, of which the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212.
That's a concern there. That total's going down. When that total goes down, that's closer to Jeffries. I don't understand why how 2 votes are not there.
The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 200. The Honorable Byron Donalds of the state of Florida has received 17. The Honorable Kevin Hearn of the state of Oklahoma has received 3. With 1 recorded as present.
So one person did not vote. Wait, 2 people didn't vote, right?
No member-elect having received a majority of the votes cast, a speaker has not been elected. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House.
What happened? In the chat, tell me what happened. Did 2 people not vote, or did 1 person not vote? It was supposed to be 434. Then the 1 person did present, so 433. Somebody didn't vote. That's a very big deal.
Order. House is not in order.
The American dream is a dream worth fighting for. And I know in my hearts of hearts that Kevin McCarthy is the man to lead us as we work to fulfill that dream for everyone in every state and in every district. Everyone in this chamber understands the need to serve our constituents. It's who elected us, and it's our responsibility. Kevin understands this as well as anyone. He has dedicated his life to spreading opportunity for all through the private sector and the public sector. You know, this place is a special place for me. My first time on the Hill was back when I was an intern in 2003. My mom visited, and I remember walking her around the halls of Congress as if I owned the place. Well, just a few days ago, I got to walk my mom around one more time this special place, but now as a member-elect of the United States House of Representatives. The American dream is alive. I believe it. I've gotten to know Kevin McCarthy well. He secured a Republican majority in the United States House and laid out a plan to deliver for the American people. There's one thing that I know about Kevin McCarthy. He cares about the American people. He cares about our country and is here not to be somebody, but to do something. And that has been laid out in his commitment to America, to fight for an economy that is strong, a nation that is safe, a future that is built on freedom, and a government that is accountable. This I can strongly get behind. This country gave me and my family an opportunity to achieve the American dream. Friends, I was born in Mexico. The best way that I can tell you who I am is through a short conversation I had with my dad when I told him I was going to run for office. This conversation, of course, in Español, in Spanish. My dad asked me, Juan, where else could we have our story? We come to this country, we immerse in the culture, we learn English, we go through the long journey and become U.S. citizens. He said, I drive a bus my whole life, and now my son has a shot at becoming a member of the United States Congress. Where else in the world could we have our story? But where else in the world could any of us have our story? Regardless of our background, regardless of where we come from, what side of the aisle we sit on, we have the privilege and opportunity to sit here today as part of a historic moment, fighting for what we believe. The answer of where else is nowhere else. Only.
Sorry, I want to interrupt. So I did look into it. Somebody was absent. Emily Brooks on Twitter. Twitter is even better than Google or DuckDuckGo, to be honest. I couldn't find it in Twitter or in Google or DuckDuckGo. And some of it was on New York Times, where I don't have a subscription. But McCarthy did only get 200. He lost another person. Ken Buck reportedly was absent. That's pretty serious. I don't know what I didn't see why. I didn't hear them talking about it. This vote is very serious, because you take him out of it, that puts Jeffries closer. Jeffries at 49%. He's not that far. So you need 218 if everyone votes. But if you've got, and I could have an error in my spreadsheet, but let me just double check here. So we're at 232 votes. So 200 for McCarthy, 212 for Jeffries, and then the others, 20 of the others, basically between Donalds and Hearn, and then one present that takes that total from 434 to 433. Then we have an absence that takes that total from 433 to 432. So I'm going to change my spreadsheet to present or absent, because it's the same thing effectively. So let me show, I don't know. They got to figure out what's going on with him. Like, is it a health? Because if somebody has a health issue and they have to go to the hospital, they won't vote. So that changed the total necessary, because these are the only ones that count. If you put someone's name, that's the only ones that count. So 432. You only need 216 or 217. You've got to be above that. So it took the total bit down by one. If that happens, I've said it before, I'm okay with it, because I'd rather, Kevin McCarthy is a swamp creature, so what's the difference? But Jeffries is at 49%. He just needs to get over 50%. So if you've got another person that says, I'm out to lunch or whatever, now you're at 216. If you got another person that says, I'm out to lunch, you're still at 216. So you would need to go from 200. How many more people? You'd need 8 more people probably. Let me look at this and see. Yeah. So he would need the 10 people. It would still need to be more, but this would not do it. If the vote total was that, it wouldn't do it. So he would need 9 more people. So it'd be 242. 423 down here, and he would be speaker. So that's not a vote you just miss. That's not a vote you miss. So it's not like you're going to the bathroom and then they give you a chance after they do the roll. You have to be there when they start it. If you're there when they start it, then you can leave, do interviews, whatever. You can even miss your vote. And as long as you come back after they're done, they ask and say, was anybody here when we started that didn't vote? We are in a very dicey situation here, which I'm perfectly fine with. But what time is it? I'm going to be out here soon. I'm going to try and hang around to see if I can see who's going to speak for Donald's or whoever else.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise again to nominate Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker of the House.
He won't be too long. They're making it quick. So you see, with all this applause, there's no other avenue. They're not going to be applauding. We're voting for Hakeem Jeffries, and then they're going to work with the Republicans and pick somebody else. They don't operate like that. How do you think Nancy P. would take that? My Padawan is the next up in charge, and you're going to go vote for gosh knows who. It would have to be a Democrat. It would have to be a black Democrat, Cori Bush. Could you imagine Cori Bush as speaker? I think her first speech would be like, white supremacists, white supremacy, white supremacists, white supremacy. Like, that would be it. Could you imagine Cori Bush as Speaker of the House? But it would have to be a black woman. You couldn't remove Hakeem Jeffries even for another black man. So that's not even it's not a scenario. It's close to zero. The Hakeem Jeffries is right here. Hakeem Jeffries right here. There is a chance he could be speaker. I think there's a stronger chance. Let me go out. Hot take. I think I'm stalling until he's done. Hot take. I think there's a larger chance that Hakeem Jeffries becomes speaker than Steve Scalise. I really do. I don't see off. It's my dog. I really do. Or it's at least as close of a chance. I don't see the Steve Scalise. Off. Oh my gosh, my dog almost knocked the camera over. Oh my goodness, that was scary. My life flashed before my very eyes. I would have to buy a new camera. He didn't pee on the ground. Okay, I was about to get heated. I'm a mess. I'm going to be out soon. I'm a mess. Gosh, I've listened to him speak too much. My God.
An older brother in 6th grade and his fourth grade little brother to go to school each and every day in New York, to be on their own, to handle themselves, and to handle each other. That's the character of this man. That's the character of a leader you want in this chamber. He's going to be the one who walks with you, who sees you through the day, who makes sure your priorities are his priorities. And at the end of the day, when it's just you and he's going to make sure we all do the business of this body and we all get home for our families. There is nothing more important than the work that we do in this chamber for the American public. Safeguarding priorities like Social Security and Medicare, making sure that our families are taken care of, making sure that the families in our communities are taken care of. And what we've seen in this chamber is tough. It's tough to watch. It's tough to imagine what would happen in this chamber today if we were debating Social Security and Medicare? What would happen? What would the votes be? Where would people stand? That's why it's important that Hakeem Jeffries leads this body. On behalf of the Democratic Caucus, I am nominating the leader of the governing party in this chamber, Hakeem Jeffries from New York.
Okay, let's see who's speaking.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Florida rise?
Madam Speaker, I would like to rise to nominate Byron Donalds for Speaker of the House.
Wow.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Anna
I've
Paulina
known Byron
Luna.
for roughly about 4 years now, and being that he's from the state of Florida, I can tell you that I've come to know him on both the campaign trail and personally. But I want to clarify something real quick to my colleagues across the aisle. What you're seeing with this discussion does not mean that we are dysfunctional. And in no way, shape, or form will a Democrat ever hold the gavel to a Republican-controlled House.
I don't know. Be careful of that one.
These discussions and dialogues have actually been good for the American people. And although the media tries to pit us against each other, I can tell you that it's been something that we need as a country. There are people that are frustrated with this process. Byron, through this entire time, has done something that I think most leaders should do more of, and that is listen. Respect people when they're talking. Understand the needs of the American people.
Passive aggressive.
Be willing to take negotiations, but also to realize when is a proper time to stand your ground on certain things. I asked my colleagues today to support him. I think he's an incredible representation of what this country is, and that is exactly why he has my vote for Speaker of the House. Thank you.
Okay, short and sweet. She is the freshman. She has not even been sworn in yet. That's a big moment. Anna Paulina
For what purpose
Luna.
does the gentlewoman from Colorado rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Kevin Hern of Oklahoma for Speaker of the House.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
It's as simple as that, folks. Let's start getting somewhere with this. Realize the facts. Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes. Let's elect a Republican who can unify our conference, who is a true leader. I'm casting my vote for Kevin Hern, and I hope you will as well.
Yep.
I yield.
That was good. Her other speech was all that needed to be
Reading
said.
clerk will call the roll.
I can guarantee you I'm not here for this one. Let me assure you all of one thing. I am not going to be here for another roll call. That's for damn sure. But this has been enjoyable, though. I would be if I didn't have something to do, so I don't know why I'm even acting like that. But we'll see what happens here, man. This is exciting. This is exciting. What we're seeing is a third party. We've never had three parties in our country before, and I just told you about a concession of McCarthy was not to use Republican money to go after Republicans. That's because it's a third party. And you see why I called the populist left fakes. It's been proven. They've never done anything like this. Ever. They have more votes than MAGA does. MAGA has about 5 solid votes between just the same names from Boebert, Gates. MTG's not even on this one. MAGA only has about 5 votes. They turned it into 21 and 22 with some dude that just didn't vote. Anybody know what happened with that? Somebody said prettier than AOC. So MAGA expanded that. The squad has more than 5. They've got offsprings. They could take their, I don't know what they got, 8 to 10 and spread it out to more. So I'm out. Well, thanks a lot for joining. This is fascinating. And I think it is time, though, to stop. It's time to they already have these scheduled. And I don't know when the vote is because I'm usually probably not streaming in the evening. They've got to cancel the other votes. They just got to stop them. and just say we're done until, well, McCarthy doesn't want that because he wants it to drag on and more and more and more. But that's what you would do if you were serious about it. Woo. Let me know what you think. Visit the Discord. Best way to keep in touch. I got Middle. You can go to middlemega.com, go to community, and you'll find the Discord. You can also, I do have a locals. I use the locals for just like bookmarking links right now. So I'll put the Discord in the chat. Casual Goats and others, we're always in there talking all kinds of stuff. Usually it's not politics in there to keep in touch in between streams. Oh, Jessica Mai, what's up? Sorry, I have to end the live right now. I got to go, but appreciate you stopping by. Got the Discord there. And so I do have a locals. If anybody's on locals, I'm on there for sure. Just as a heads up, I just use it for bookmarks and just every once in a while some likes and comments. And then the main website is middlemega.com, where I'll do my streams and put up some blogs and notes. And you have the store. I lost my other, I have no idea. I must have took it somewhere and left it because it's not in the house. I don't know where my red Super MAGA one is, so I got the gray Super MAGA sweater. So you go to middlemega.com, go to the store. Got a couple items on there. And thanks a lot. Take care.